So to discuss what's UNIV 2022 Asia Pacific Congress going to be like, may we call on Miss Arian Canoy and Miss Yula Mangawang from the UNIV team.
All right. So, hi, everyone. Thank you, Erica. Hello, everyone. So earlier this morning, we explained what UNIV Philippines is. So now let me discuss more about UNIV 2022 with the theme, Rebuilding Together the Strength of Human Relationships. So what is UNIV 2022? Anticipating a distance learning experience due to the pandemic, UNIV 2022 is an online, multidisciplinary, and collaborative learning experience in which young female from the senior high schools and universities from the Philippines and its neighboring countries um, work on a project to address the theme, Rebuilding Together the Strength of Human Relationships. So how does this work? Through an online platform, just like last year, a student can work individually or with a group to analyze the fundamental issue or challenge related to the theme, study how it affects the immediate surroundings, develop tools or skills to design a viable project, and execute the procedures necessary to achieve the goals of the project. So before we dive into the specifics of the UNIV project, let us first go over the 5 key subject areas of our main theme. So we have one main theme, right? The rebuilding together the strength of human relationships. But in order for us to explore specific aspects, concepts, and ideas, this main theme is divided further into 5 key subject areas, all of which have been mentioned during the plenary earlier. So the first subject area being breaking barriers, identifying realities and experiences that weaken human relationships and development, and finding solutions to address or overcome them. So this is in relation to the issues that may arise or dysfunctions in the human relationships. So earlier from the plenary session, we have heard people break out of themselves in order to reach out to others. A lot of us have mentioned that we have to challenge ourselves. So this is something that we will be exploring in breaking barriers. So the second key subject area is strengthening structures, discovering new ways to build a stronger family, school, church, community, and government in relation to the settings of human relations. So during the pandemic, most, if not all of us, have tried to reconnect with people who we usually come in contact with, but who we take for granted. And in the plenary, we mentioned reconnecting with family members and getting in touch with friends, whether online or in person. So here, we are exploring where human relationships are formed because understanding the setting also gives us a better perspective on how we can strengthen these relationships. So next, we have building bridges, finding ways to connect, communicate, collaborate, or reach out to people, societies, or nations in the age of globalization. So in this age of globalization, we are becoming more and more aware of how interconnected we all are, really. And this in turn makes us realize the importance of communication and relationships. An example of this is what we have also mentioned earlier during the plenary, the community pantries. So we realize that a small contribution of one can actually make a big difference if done together. For the fourth subject area, we have honing heritages, cultivating arts, traditions, and culture, revisiting history, and optimizing science and technology to build people's relationships and communities. So how can art and culture or science and technology influence and form relationships? So that is the question we would like to answer in this key subject area. So we invest time in developing hobbies that help us connect with other people. So a few examples mentioned earlier are cooking, learning languages, or mastering an instrument. So finally, we have creating constructs, examining or enriching paradigms, beliefs, and values towards stronger human ties. So how do we form better relationships? So we have to challenge paradigms. How can we enrich our values and beliefs? Those are the kinds of questions we are going to ask for our last key subject area. So the series of talks and activities leading up to the UNIV week will revolve around these 5 key subject areas. UNIV 2022 allows students to participate in a learning community that provides timely training so that participants can collaborate and exchange experiences with each other. Aside from this experience and exchange, students will be given a certificate of participation for those who would like to attend the talks and activities, or a certificate of recognition for those who would like to present their approved and implemented projects. From launch date, which is today, until the UNIV week next year, presenters are expected to come up with an UNIV project, which will be presented in the UNIV 2022 Asia Pacific Congress. Okay, so now, what is this UNIV project? So an UNIV project is an output from an individual presenter or a group of presenters. So these projects can be worked on in a span of 4 months. And these projects, whether carried out or started on, can also be featured in the Asia Pacific Congress within the UNIV week. Furthermore, an UNIV project could be in the form of a research paper, a video output, a documentary, a social initiative, or an outreach program. So given the different online platforms for execution of these projects, an UNIV project can actually be a social media initiative or a social media activation, just like what you can see in this screen. So we are leaving the form of the project up to the presenters as long as the proposals are evaluated and approved by your respective advisors, and of course by our very own pool of consultants. So in case you don't have an advisor yet, or you don't have a center affiliation yet, but you're interested in participating and presenting an UNIV project, so the UNIV team can be the one to assign you to specific groups with the same interest or scope of studies. So later on, we will ask you to fill out a separate form should you wish to participate in the activities and or present your projects. But for now, let me have a quick run through of the UNIV project consultants. So first we have Dr. Maria Bernadette Abrera, a professor of history in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, also the dean of the College of the Social Science and Philosophy in the same university. She graduated with a degree in Bachelor of Arts in History from St. Scholastica's College, and she also took up Master of Arts in History and PhD in Philippine Studies at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Second, we have Professor Alma Santiago S. Martinez, PhD. She is an associate professor in the University of Santo Tomas and in De La Salle College of St. Benilde. She graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, Master of Arts in Philosophy, and PhD in Philosophy at the Pontifical University of Santo Tomas. Our third consultant is Ms. Yula Marie Mangawang. She is a University Extension Associate at the National College of Public Administration and Governance. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Development Communication from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and a Master of Public Administration from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. And finally, last but not the least, is Ms. Maria Isabel Regina Abola. She is a Management Associate at Lufthansa Technic Philippines. She graduated from the University of Asia and the Pacific with a Bachelor of Science in Economics and also a Master of Science in Industrial Economics from the same university. Okay, so now that we have an overview of our consultants, you might be wondering how the proposals and the projects will be evaluated. But for this part, I would like to call on Yula, one of our consultants and also part of the UNIV team, to discuss the project proposal outline and the calendar of activities for UNIV 2022.
Thank you, Aryan, for the information about the UNIV projects. So now let's go to how the UNIV projects will be evaluated by the consultants, the project proposals. So basically, the project proposal must have the following parts or elements. So first, the background of the project. So basically, why are we doing this project for? What for? No? And what building block does it address? No? Which of the five common topics or subtopics is the project trying to address? And then, what framework guides the project? Okay, so earlier we heard from Miss Pia, no, so that it is not enough to implement the project, no, or to solve a particular social problem. So we have to understand, no, which aspects of human relationships are we trying to solve or address. No? So I think that will be part of the conceptual framework of your project proposal. So what framework guides the project? And how does it relate to the theme? No? How does your project relate to strengthening of the human relationships, no? Or rebuilding together? Okay. Another part is the objectives of your project proposal. So they should be smart objectives. So it should also be in line with the theme. Okay. So smart meaning attainable, realistic, time bound, measurable. Okay. Um, Scope and impact of the UNIV project. So what are the expected outcomes or end results? No, so it's not enough to implement. There should be a tangible scope and impact. No, what is your project trying to do? No, and what can it not do? No, so there are limitations to your project, understandably, and the impact. So what is the value of the project to your beneficiaries or your partners? Okay, so next. Okay, time frame. So this includes the phases of the project. What are the particular tasks involved in implementing your project? And of course, the start and end dates, given the 4-month period. Or I think it can also be an ongoing project, as long as during the project report, you're able to report on the preliminary findings of that project that you are trying to implement. Project budget. Of course, you have to take into account the non-recurring and recurring expenses involved in implementing your project. Okay. Key stakeholders. So this is important, when we try to establish possible areas of collaboration or partnership with our stakeholders. Okay, client beneficiaries, audience, sponsors, or the funders of your project, project manager, collaborators or partners of your project. Monitoring and evaluation. So this relates to the scope and the impact of your UNIV project. So side by side with the objectives, what are the measures or indicators of effectiveness? How can you say that your project has been effective so far? Okay. Monitoring or evaluation tools. How will you know if those measures or indicators that you proposed were actually measured or addressed? For example, a possible measure or indicator of effectiveness is 50% of the project or 50% of the beneficiaries having ownership of your project. So an example of monitoring or evaluation tool will be perhaps conducting a survey or maybe an interview of the beneficiaries to know if they have actually committed to the project that you are implementing, or if it had any value to them. So that will be an example of a monitoring or evaluation tool. Okay. So the UNIV 2022 Asia Pacific Congress will be held during the Holy Week of 2022, next year, from April 10 to April 17 via online platforms. So you can stay tuned for more details about the program of activities for the UNIV week. So those who wish to participate in an UNIV project can start working soon after this launch. So after this launch, baka meron na kayong, maybe you are thinking something interesting that you can implement in your community or your locality. So there, you can already implement your UNIV project, or you can propose. Okay, so these are the calendar of activities. October 16, that is today, is the UNIV 2022 launch, and you can now start forming UNIV project groups and registering for the next year's UNIV week. On November 6, so later on we will flash this on the screen, orientation for UNIV projects for those who are interested to propose and implement their respective UNIV projects. So there will be an orientation on November 6 in the afternoon. On November 30 is the deadline of project proposals. So December 4, roundtable discussion. So December 4, January 8, and February 5, just to keep you interested, and help you or guide you in creating and implementing your UNIV projects. There will be roundtable discussions on the science, art, and spirit of human relations or relationships. Okay, on March 5 is the deadline of the submission of the project report. So whatever was the findings or the preliminary results of your project, you ought to submit it by March 5. Okay, so we will give you the details of the format of the project report later on. March 12, a pre-Congress fellowship for the participants of UNIV, Asia Pacific. And then April 10 is the UNIV Asia Pacific Congress proper. So there. So are you ready to univate? Okay. So we invite you to join the UNIV Projects Orientation. That will be on November 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. via Zoom. So if you're interested to propose a project for UNIV Asia Pacific, let us know. And you can also attend this orientation, and we will provide you with the details, meeting details, soon after this launch event. So that's it. Thank you so much.